So when I ask a lot of people in my own life, when I encourage them, they see what I do on YouTube, they see what I write on my Substack, and they see all these newsletters going out encouraging people to read more. A lot of them hit me with the same question, which is, Robin, we love the idea of exploring more theory. We love the idea of getting lost in intellectual rabbit holes, but what is it really going to do for my life? Over here, I'm trying to eat healthier. Over here, I'm trying to exercise more. And over here, I'm trying to just earn more money and move on with my life. What does this complicated thinker from the 19th century have to do with anything that I'm doing in my life? I completely understand that question. And first off, I've been thinking about the exact same thing for the past couple of months because ever since getting out of university, or more precisely, ever since getting thrown out of university because of the PhD rejection, I've been losing a lot of the knowledge that I've gained. I've been forgetting a lot of the more subtle and complex theoretical stuff and more abstract theories. And, a lot of my brain's energy is typically being dedicated towards, how do I organize my day? How do I squeeze in an hour at the gym before the schedule that I have just completely engulfs me? Over time, as we get older, we do tend to substitute more abstract concerns with more practical concerns. That's just how it goes. But at the same time, there's still a little bit of a desire for us to be more informed about the world, to read more, to understand the world a little bit deeper. How do we resolve that conflict between the theoretical and the practical? So that's what we're going to talk about today, and hopefully by the end of today's video, we're going to have a much better understanding and better relationship. You're going to have a better relationship with theory in your life. So let's start from the very beginning. Let's assign some blame to this thing that we've been talking about for the past 8 years on this YouTube channel, which is the education system has screwed it up for us again. Bring to mind the word theory and bring to mind the word concepts. And more often than not, you're going to be thinking about that dry taste that you get in your mouth. And more often than not, you're going to start thinking about the font that they use on your exam papers. And more often than not, you're going to start dreading that ticking timer when you're doing that exam of yours. So theory and concepts have, in a sense, terrorized our entire college experience to the point where when you get out of university, you virtually can find no application for any of the theory. I used to take a lot of chemistry and physics classes back in high school. But nowadays, when I head into the kitchen, the last thing I'm thinking about is photosynthesis. I haven't even consulted the periodic table once in the past 5 years. That's how useful theory really is. So imagine if you have a whole curriculum full of this theory, a whole curriculum full of derivatives and integrations that you need to do to polynomial functions. You're going to start thinking to yourself, man, did I just waste a number of years of my life pursuing empty theory? And all this is hammered home by this quote that's frequently misattributed to Albert Einstein and B.F. Skinner. But the quote goes something along the lines of this: education is what survives when you have forgotten all you've been taught. That was my own paraphrase because this quote is so ubiquitous. We might as well register this quote under a Creative Commons license because you really cannot find the source, or you really cannot find where someone has said this. Everyone has said this quote at some point in their lives, or many writers have mentioned this quote, that now it's just basically common knowledge. But even with that quote in mind, I want you to realize that as you go through your day, as you try to tackle problems in your life, you're still using theory. You're still using some kind of conceptual understanding of a situation to make sense of the situation. For example, what do you need to do to feel loved? Or what do you need to do to attract someone that you're interested in? Or what do you need to do to get all the stuff on your to-do list done? There is a theoretical kind of layer to it. You have to have some sort of a broader life philosophy for you to even take an action, especially for those guys. And yes, it's usually a guy who just says something like, oh, I'm just a very practical person. I don't deal with theory. Theory is just mumbo jumbo and nothing. Even for those people, they have a theory in their minds, or they have this conception in their minds that to be practical is to generate the most amount of results. And that's the kind of software that they're running. So notice you're run by hidden patterns, and you're run by hidden assumptions about the world. And sometimes you could very well project conclusions into a situation without you even realizing it. For example, you meet someone, you think they're an asshole, but why and what makes you think that you understand this person? What makes you think that you understand this person so much so as to label them an asshole upon meeting them for the first time? So, just as a quick thought experiment, bring to mind like 2 to 3 hidden assumptions that you have about the world and hidden reasons for your actions. For example, for myself, one of my biggest life's assumption is work is what's going to bring me the most amount of fulfillment in life. You know, I might change it later. I might challenge this assumption later, but the point here is it is there. And you too, you have a bag of assumptions and you have a bag of these hidden theories lodged somewhere deep in your psyche that you've probably never looked at. And largely, this is what therapy is for, but just as a mini version, just pay attention to the fact that you do have concepts and theories that run your life. You're not completely theory free. Even if you're one of these highly practical people, you do have ideas that are running your life. Which leads us to perhaps the most important distinction that we need to make when we want to grow intellectually, or even when we want to grow just on a practical basis. What is a piece of theory really? You know, this is kind of like that thing that most of us know what it is when we talk about it. You know, like we know what pornography is. We don't really have a precise definition for it, but we know it when we see it. We know theory when we see it. So it sometimes helps to have a more rigorous definition of theory. So over here, our leather jacket wearing and ponytail wearing friend Byung-Chul Han here, in his book, The Agony of Eros, I think in the last chapter, he defined theory as a highly selective form of narration. Bringing back an idea from the last video on Gustave Flaubert, maybe you've watched the video or maybe it's too theoretical for your liking, but in that video, we basically make the point that life is just a circus freak show full of sensations and full of events. But if we don't have a way to conceptualize these events, we're simply going to be lost to the chaos because there's just so many things happening that sometimes we struggle to draw any kind of boundaries or any kinds of order around a set of events. And given that we're all narrative creatures, we've inherited certain narratives about our lives, we've inherited certain identities as a part of that narrative, and we've inherited certain thought patterns that make sense of this chaos or this circus freak show called life. So initially, what seems like something that we have absolutely no control over, this kind of narration of our lives, in fact, is something that we can alter. In fact, it is something that we've been narrating for years. It's simply a pattern of how we group certain events together to make sense of them. And in that sense, theory is the principle behind how we group together events in our lives. Hence, it is a highly selective form of narration. And to think that you're above and beyond this plane of theory, or you're above and beyond this life's narration, is basically like trying to add petrol to a car that has no engine. And realize that this definition of theory doesn't just apply to high-minded philosophical theories or historical theories or shit that your math teacher deems to be supremely important. It also very much applies to just how we live our lives. For example, do you have the confidence to go out there and try to eat healthy every single day? You have a theory about that, and that theory typically gets reflected in the actions that you take, in the patterns of thinking that you indulge in. And every once in a while, you're going to experience that this theory is going to start to change. For example, some event happens. You meet an amazing person, all of a sudden your life is shattered in the best way. You throw away all the preconceived notions about love, and there you are, falling in love, and there you are, embarking upon a grand adventure where nothing much really matters anymore. Or one day you discover in an art gallery, walking through an art gallery, you think to yourself, oh my God, all these paintings, they're all so boring. But that one painting catches your gaze. And you find yourself standing in front of that painting for 20 minutes just contemplating it. And once you walk out of that gallery, you're going to find yourself in a daze. All of a sudden, a lot of things in your life start to change. All of a sudden, you feel like you're a completely different person because a part of your identity has changed. And that is the power of changing your theory. And that is the power of challenging some of the assumptions in your mind. And that is basically the power of properly defining theory as a highly selective form of narration. As you're ingesting more sources, I don't care if you read a self-help book or a philosophy book, or if you just wander through an art gallery, or you go watch a movie or something, pay close attention to what this movie or what this piece of art or what this book is doing to your life's narration. Chances are, if one thing gets changed in there, your whole narrative changes, and all of a sudden you have a very different philosophy of life. And that is really the power of finding multiple perspectives to live life. By having the courage to change the software or change the perception of how you group certain events and people and happenings together, you're inadvertently going to change your entire life. And I mean that quite literally, and you can verify this for yourself. If you find an extremely important book, or you can bring back an experience that has completely altered you, realize that your life's narration also changed at that very moment, because theory is, in a sense, a highly selective form of narration. So in conclusion, how do we develop a more healthy relationship with theory in our lives? Number one, realize schools and universities have fucked it up for all of us. And number two, realize that theory is not just limited to people who are abstract thinkers, not just limited to people who are a little bit more like closet thinkers or a little bit more like armchair philosophers. Even the most practical people have a way of living their lives based in theory. And in this case, theory is a highly selective form of narration. And that is, in a sense, the power of self-education, because as you're educating yourself, you're going to come into contact with so many data points and so many interesting considerations that are completely outside of your life's narrative, that are completely foreign to you. You are basically living 1,000 lives before you even venture beyond your front porch. And that is all I want to talk about in this video. And hopefully it made some sort of practical difference in your life, and view this video as a piece of theory. Did it alter something in your mind? Did it change your opinion about theory? And if it did, leave me a comment down below. Anyway, Robert Walden here, and I hope that you're having an amazing evening, as I am, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, and goodbye.